viewers, I'm your host Uzma Jafri with another episode of South Asia Focus. Let's begin the show. New Delhi has appealed for peace after a sudden escalation in the Russia-Ukraine crisis after the former President Vladimir Putin launched a special military operation on eastern Ukrainian border. New Delhi also dialed both the countries and urged for the safety of the citizens of India.
The world woke up to raining missiles in Ukraine after Russia launched a fierce military attack on eastern Ukraine on 24th February. The attack that came in the backdrop of Russia's repeated attempts at preventing Ukraine from joining NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, a military grouping that has by and large been anti-Russia, failed. Russian President Vladimir Putin called it a military operation and not invasion, which the West and the Western media have broadly defined the aggression as. Death and destruction followed. Ukrainian envoy in New Delhi appealed the government of India to come to their rescue. He said India was a major influencer in the global order and it must step in to stop what has been one of the fiercest attacks since World War II.
I don't know how many world leaders Putin may listen to, but the status of Modi ji makes me hopeful that in case of his strong voice, Putin at least should think over. We are expecting for much more favorable attitude of the Indian government in this crisis situation.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a meeting of the Cabinet Committee on Security, the country's top decision-making body on senior appointments in the national security apparatus. After taking the stock of the situation, Modi reiterated his long-standing conviction that the differences between Russia and the NATO group can only be resolved through honest and sincere dialogue. PM Modi appealed for an immediate cessation of violence and called for concerted efforts from all sides to return to the path of diplomatic negotiations and dialogue. Instead of just reading a symbolic template of peace and condemnation, Indian Prime Minister showed the way in his official statement, urging all countries to intensify their diplomacy in order to bring peace and harmony in the region. Modi also dialed Putin and urged him to de-escalate in order to restore peace in the region.
Our focus in the UN Security Council has always been on de-escalation of tensions, on diplomatic dialogue as the only way forward. And we've also emphasized on the existing agreements, the Minsk agreements, the Normandy format. We've also obviously placed the highest importance to the safety and security of our nationals in the Ukraine in our statements in the UN Security Council. And so in all of this, I think we have, as I said, maintained that people need to talk to each other, the parties need to be engaged.
India's Foreign Ministry also asked both the governments to facilitate a safe return of Indian nationals who are stranded in Ukraine. While many of them have returned in past few weeks, others could not make the return arrangements before Russia launched the strike. Teams of Indian Foreign Ministry officials have been sent to Ukraine's land borders with Hungary, Poland, Slovakia and Romania to provide assistance to any fleeing Indian national. Most of the Indians stranded in Ukraine are students who go to the country for medical and other educational institutions. The government has said that it is committed to bring back each citizen and its diplomatic endeavors to ensure peace in the region will continue.
Moving on. Sri Lanka is going through a dark phase, literally a dark phase, as it has run out of fossil fuels to operate its power generators. The country is facing a severe shortage of foreign exchange and is unable to pay for fuel shipments. The common people are blaming the government for what they call its failure to preempt and handle the crisis in time. The government, meanwhile, has been reaching out to other states in order to ask for assistance, but so far it hasn't really received the kind of responses it sought, barring from New Delhi, which has said that it is considering assisting the island nation.
Just 3 days ago, the island nation Sri Lanka experienced a power cut like never before, as almost the entire country plunged into darkness due to country's incapacity to pay for the fossil fuels. And it wasn't just a single-day phenomenon. The island nation of 22 million people has been suffering a severe shortage of foreign exchange, leading to widespread power cuts in recent days after being left unable to pay for fuel shipments. Business owners in the capital Colombo were seen using candles to light up their stores.
ඇත්තටම මේ පහට විතර කරන්ට් එක කපනවා. ඒතකොට මේ වෙලාව බිස්නස් තියෙන වෙලාවනේ අපිට බිස්නස් තියෙන වෙලාවේ මේ කරන්ට් එක කැපුවාම මේ කොහොමද අපි මේ බිස්නස් කරගන්නේ? ඊට පස්සේ 8:00ට විතර එනවා. ඒ වෙලාව වෙනකොට මේ පාරේ හිස් ඒ කියන්නේ මිනිස්සු කවුරුත් නැහැ. එතකොට අපේ තියෙන කෑම ඔක්කොම නරක් වෙලා විසික් කරන්න වෙනවා. එතකොට අපිට ගොඩක් පාඩු.
The island nation is highly dependent on fossil fuel to keep the country running. Over 50% of its needs are met by oil, coal, petroleum and natural gas. The country paid $35 million for a diesel shipment last week, but was required to pay another large payment to import fuel for power generation and to keep its transport system running. Country's foreign exchange reserves hit $2.36 billion at the end of January, while it has to repay about $4 billion in debt repayments this year. Earlier, Sri Lanka's power regulator had announced a countrywide 4-hour and 40 minutes power cut due to waning diesel supplies, triggering long lines of vehicles at petrol stations ahead of the cut. The authorities have come out and said that government was unable to pay for the shipments and hinted at a prolonged period of similar power cuts.
The short-term reason is that there's no enough supply of fossil fuels to run the generators to generate power, and therefore we need to go for the present power cuts in Sri Lanka.
People have not just been suffering the pain in queues, but they have been accusing the government of failure and mismanagement. The fuel has not only hit the power generation, but their entire life and lifestyle. Rohan Fernando, a businessman in Kurungala, said he had grown frustrated with the manner in which the government was running the country and urged people to not support Rajapaksas in any upcoming elections. With just a few days of stock left, the government has been asking for support from different countries for assistance. For now, it is just India, its neighbor, which has comforted it by assuring that it will be making investments in the country. India might also lend Colombo a line of credit in coming times to save it from a complete collapse.
Moving on. Amid a free-falling economy and a growing food crisis, the Taliban-ruled Afghanistan is receiving a considerable assistance from its South Asian neighbor, India. New Delhi, which had earlier sent medicines and clothing, has now sent the first consignment of the 50,000 tons of wheat it has promised to the war-torn country. This is the first time the aid was sent via road, as Pakistan, the arch enemy of India, came on same page with New Delhi and the international community in helping its western neighbour.
A convoy of 50 trucks carrying 2,500 tons of wheat set off for Afghanistan via Pakistan this week. The aid has been sent in line with a multi-layered humanitarian assistance being provided to Afghanistan by the largest South Asian country. The decision got materialized after weeks of talks with the government of Pakistan, which has been both reluctant and obstructive in the past with regards to India's reach-out gestures to Afghanistan. Several experts say Pakistan allowed the aid movement to prevent itself from the global condemnation. The consignment will go from Attari to Jalalabad in Afghanistan via Pakistan and will be further disseminated. New Delhi, which has been directly coordinating with the UN agencies in this humanitarian assistance, says it will complete its target of transporting 50,000 tons of wheat as well as a substantial amount of medicine in coming weeks.
The first consignment of 50 trucks carrying 2,500 tons of wheat has set off for Jalalabad in Afghanistan. We expect multiple consignments to roll out of the Attari ICP, and within 2 to 3 months we should have completed our commitment of 50,000 tons of wheat.
The wheat will be shipped 3 days after India sent 2.5 tons of medical assistance and winter clothing to Afghanistan on Saturday. That was the 5th shipment of humanitarian assistance sent by India since the beginning of the year. New Delhi will also be supplying food and medicines through the Chabahar of Iran in coming days. Even in the past, when a democratically elected government was at the helm of affairs in Afghanistan, India would supply all forms of assistance through this port. India has so far supplied 6.6 tons of life-saving medicines and 500,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccines to Afghanistan, and most of the aid has been sent on flights via the United Arab Emirates and Iran.
This help coming from India is really timely and very important. We hope there would be continued support from India, as India has been always very close and generous to the people of Afghanistan. So WFP is extremely pleased.
India says it is committed to providing humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan, and in this particular case, where a rapidly deteriorating situation needed a short route, the government of India was tirelessly working at exploring all avenues. It marks a response to the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, where poverty and hunger have spiraled since the Taliban took power last year. The Taliban-led administration has been using wheat as payment for thousands of government workers, mostly laborers, as the country's financial crisis intensifies. The multi-pronged crisis in Afghanistan has been expanding by the day, and the Taliban administration has been running pillar to post, urging countries to recognize it and provided the required assistance in order to prevent a catastrophe. After its repeated requests, the Biden administration has allowed to unfreeze $7 billion, but a half of the sum would be effectively used to provide legal and other forms of assistance to US citizens who were affected by the 9/11 attack. The decision has drawn criticism from the Taliban administration and several observers of the situation. Afghan diplomats, former officials, and experts have roundly condemned Biden's move, which they say has taken away a chance to stabilize the free-falling Afghan economy and currency. United Nations Development Programme recently projected that up to 97% of Afghans could fall below the poverty line by mid-2022. Despite that, Washington is so far unwilling to change its call, prompting Taliban to say that they might break the commitments they made during the peace talks. The United States and other countries still blame Taliban for not adhering to all the conditions of the talks, especially the rights of women. Taliban present a contrary position, saying everything written under the agreement has been followed and they must now be allowed to run their country in a manner they want.
Time now for Asia This Week, the stories from across the continent.
Hong Kong rolled out vaccine passports requiring people aged 12 and above to have at least one COVID-19 jab and paved the way for mainland China manpower to help bring a worsening outbreak under control. Residents are now mandated to show their vaccine record to access venues including supermarkets, shopping malls and restaurants, a major inconvenience in a city where malls link train station to residences and office buildings. Some locals labeled this new vaccine policy as useless and troublesome. Another said Hong Kong should move from its dynamic zero COVID-19 strategy similar to mainland China and learn to live with COVID-19. Authorities also tightened restrictions from Thursday in a city that already has some of the most stringent rules in the world. Residents will have to wear masks for all the outdoor exercise and will not be allowed to remove them to eat or drink on public transport. Various companies in Japan are expanding their businesses through global trade, but fluctuating currency rate has been a major concern for them. Japan's NTT Communications has developed a new innovative platform to solve this problem with guaranteed rates.
外国為替というのは毎秒変わるようなものになっておりますと。でその状況で例えば日本のお客様であったり世界のお客様がビジネスをグローバルでビジネスをしようと思った時に非常にやりにくいということが一つ大きな問題となっておりました。そこで為替を固定することによってよりそのお客様のビジネスが外国のお客様であったり、場合によっては物を輸入するという場合においても非常にやりやすくなるというふうに NTT コムは考えましてそういったビジネスを提供いたしております。機能としてはすべて API アプリケーションプログラムインターフェースというシステムがお互いに呼び合うという仕組みで提供しておりますのでビジネスにも非常に組みやすいサービスとなっております。
The new platform is now used successfully for trade between Japan and Africa. Local customers expressed their high satisfaction with the new service during online meeting between headquarters in Japan and local staff in Kenya. Japan and ASEAN are joining hands to enhance economic stability and security-related issues.
We, of course, really rely on the security and stability, in Indo-Pacific. And I think an open Indo-Pacific, will benefit, not only Indonesia, but I think will benefit other countries as well, because this is the most important conditions, for trade to take place, which is the sea road, the maritime domain must be secure and also must be stable. ASEAN really expect Japan to play a more active security role.
Thailand authorities analyzes the concept of free open Indo-Pacific. Free and open Indo-Pacific concept is expanding widely from Southeast Asia, India to Africa. It guarantees safety, peace, economic prosperity, and strong human tie.
When the chill of winter begins to fade and the king of all seasons, spring takes over, the fascinatingly historical temples of Khajuraho in Chhatarpur district of Madhya Pradesh start preparing to celebrate the glory of the classical dance forms of India. Organized as Khajuraho Dance Festival, the week-long cultural extravaganza recently observed its 48th edition, where a number of eminent gurus and young artists performed a blend of different genres of classical dances. Take a look.
The Khajuraho Dance Festival, which was primarily meant to showcase the classical dance forms of India, has today grown into an event that offers a complete experience of Indian heritage and its rich art and culture. Held against the backdrop of magnificently lit Khajuraho temples, popularly the Chitragupta temples, built by the rulers of Chandela dynasty between 950 and 1050 AD, takes us back in time and makes this festival completely irresistible. The intricate footwork of Kathak, highly stylized and sophisticated Bharatnatyam, and soft lyrical temple dance of Odissi keeps the audience spellbound during the whole event.
I'm really glad that I got to know about it pretty much by chance, because I'm very much enjoying it. It's been quite impressive, especially at this backdrop of the ancient temples. So it's my first night, but I'm gonna stay definitely for the second night to see more of those dances.
This year too, the festival witnessed some of the great performances by legendary as well as upcoming artists. Palipuram Sunil, a well-known Kathakali exponent from Kerala, enthralled the audience as he performed with his wife Paris Lakshmi, who is a Bharatnatyam dancer. They presented Krishna Maya, that highlights stories from Lord Krishna's life with compositions from Kathakali and Bharatnatyam repertoire.
Today we performed the Krishna Mayam. It's a duet of Kathakali and Bharatanatyam. And we are so happy that we got the chance and blessing to perform here at Khajuraho Dance Festival. We've been dreaming of this day, and today is very special for us because it's the 85th performance of Krishna Mayam. So I think it's really a lucky number for us.
Khajuraho Festival is a reflection of the heritage that withstood the ravages of time and whose glory still shines through and draws visitors from all over the globe.
This year's Khajuraho Dance Festival also paid tribute to renowned Indian Kathak dancer Pandit Birju Maharaj. With that, we come to the end of this week's episode. See you next week. Goodbye and take care.